All right, it's live. If you are watching this not live later on, I'll put the timestamp in the description. I'm just going to hang for like 4 minutes or so and then get this going. I like to let it ride for a minute so people can actually join in. I'm also going to manually paste it onto Twitter. All right, it's live. If anyone's here, I'm just pasting it on Twitter right now. Just getting it going. All right. Anyone here yet? It's harvesting season. Harvesting the vibe. It's funny, people must watch this back and like not read the chat and then think I'm just saying things like that to myself. But yeah. Yeah. Boom. Nice. I'm stoked people are actually in the bell gang with the notifications on. Eventually I'll like cut this part out so then it'll actually just be like exclusive discussion time for people that have the bell notification on. Should be cool. I'm actually amped right now. Trying to reinvigorate the show situation. A few of you guys have been here like the whole time, trying to like get the ball rolling again. Not that the ball was ever not rolling, but trying to step it up a little bit, I guess you could say. How are you guys doing? There's a delay, so you can't answer my question just yet. I'm doing well. Just been busy. I'm trying to figure out kind of like a schedule for running the whole studio situation. Experimenting with like Monday, like clerical work and getting certain things together. Tuesday gang. That's today. Tuesday getting this thing together, doing some projects, and then basically just taking off Sunday. Mr. Brown, how's it going? It's going good, man. It's going good. I'm getting the ball rolling. I feel like I say that every week, but roll the ball. Yeah, I know. How are you guys doing? What's been going on with me? What's going on with me, honestly, in the studio is that I have a bunch of projects that are like 80% wrapped up that people commissioned from me. Basically, I keep doing this thing where I take on like a little bit too much work, and then it takes me just like a little bit too long to like actually wrap things up. So I have a bunch of projects, maybe like 4 to 6, where I'm like 85% done. I'm like right about to wrap it up. But yeah, I mean, I can't complain. It's going pretty well. Getting a better system for like taking on work and stuff like that, and also figuring out how to focus on like the projects I have going on and then things people have like paid me to do, which obviously I have to like give precedence to for that reason. Also just been studying before I go to bed a little bit. That's been tight. Yeah, people say that. I think my voice fits with the Twitter situation. All right, so new vibe. We are tightening up the professionalism. It's 7 o'clock exactly. You guys are here. I don't make people that are on time wait for late people. So we're gonna do this right now. Let's go. All right, it's happening. How's it going, guys? So some of you guys are here for the first time. Some of you guys have been here for a while. Let me know how the mic situation is. It should be fine. I turned the gain like all the way up. I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit. All right. So basically, if you have been watching, if you haven't been watching, either way, I called this the beginning of season 2. We're starting season 2 right now because when I initially started doing this, I had obviously no idea what I was doing. And I was basically just winging it. And my initial conception of how this would go is that it would just be a straight window into the purely creative process of just me, like I said, just totally winging it on the fly. And that was pretty awesome, but eventually I felt like I could step it up with just a little bit of tweaking that procedure. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. Basically, I wanted to experiment with planning it out a little bit. Just, I kind of realized it's more me talking than I thought maybe. So yeah, I wanted to hit like a theme. So whereas before it was just like, let's spin the catapult and launch off into like the gray abyss, sea fog, and we'll see what we'll find. And it actually worked out really well every time. Now I kind of have like a road into the wilderness, and I have an idea of where we're going. Not exactly, but I have an idea, and we'll see how it goes. On that note, I kind of just want to jump in. Same deal as before. I'm kind of going to master like checking out the chat and also painting. I think somewhere in between the way we've been doing it, where there was a time where I was kind of just like straight up reading it the whole time. There was a time where I kind of paused and took questions. A little formal, so maybe somewhere in between those two things we can land. But we'll figure it out. I have a feeling it'll kind of taper off from me like hardcore going on the information I want to talk about, and then maybe, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, let's just jump right in. If you saw the title, I'm very excited because I wanted to talk about something that is kind of like very underrated, I guess you could say, in the sacred art, religious art, Christian, mystical symbolism, kind of being a weirdo, trippy guy. I mean, I'm all about it, all those different things coming together. And I wanted to talk about the book of Numbers. I guess there's a few things I want to talk about just before I start laying it out here. I'm going to make the frame like I normally do, and we can just kind of get to talking. But one thing that I don't know if it's like arrogant for me to say this. Maybe it's a little arrogant for me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I kind of just feel like in general when I'm floating around like the popular discussion of religion and theology sphere, there's kind of like I don't want to call it like a phobia of the Old Testament, but I just feel like it's not really as explored, as utilized as you think it would be. I mean, I'm not talking about like going to school for like theology. I'm more just talking about like random guys like talking and shooting the shit and stuff. And I guess for me, I really maybe feel like that's something that I wanted to talk about a little bit. Not that, but just like diving into the Old Testament symbolism, because I kind of came in to Christianity. I wasn't raised Christian or anything. And you know how it is, like politics sphere and stuff like that. For a while, I was kind of like, Old Testament, like, I don't know. I don't really get, like, why, honestly, like, why would I care about this, really, I guess, if I'm being upfront. But once I started to see the arc of it and how it plays into the New Testament and how there's this symbolic, like, interplay, I got really, really, really into it for a while. And I didn't want to talk about it too much because I don't like pontificating or feeling like I'm pontificating about things if I'm just learning about them. It's kind of lame if like I just read something and then I'm going on Twitter acting like I'm some kind of like authority about it. So it's been a little while, and yeah, I thought we could kick into it. I don't want to go into a full exposition of like the Old Testament. I think that's a little bit much, but just for me, what the book of Numbers is and how it kind of like plays into things. It comes right after the book of Leviticus. Right? Someone's going to check me on all these facts. So just keep in mind, I'm not a theologian. I'm just a humble painter. So basically for me, I guess you could say how it like plays into things is you have the fall. For me, I'm just going to kind of like 30-second go into this in case anyone's like kind of still on the page that I was before of like, yeah, why do I really care about the Old Testament? And then we'll like get into it. So literally like 30 seconds is for me, it's all about the fall. It's all about contextualizing it in terms of the fall and then God kind of like rebuilding the relationship with this like fallen world. So you have Genesis. Everyone knows Genesis. Things get going. You have Exodus, and God basically is starting to get the relationship going with Abraham's family. Abraham's family kind of becomes like the nation of Israel, you could say. And then in Leviticus, it was really interesting. Someone kind of like unlocked the book for me. when they told me, yeah, what the whole book of Leviticus is about, because I was like, there's all these rules, and I'm not just going to like hang out in my room reading all these rules, like don't eat chameleons, don't eat bats, don't eat weird bugs and things. And they were like, yeah, the reason it's like that is because you have God who is perfect and holy, and he has to figure out how to exist with these imperfect people. So that's why it's all rules, right? It kind of makes sense. There's a part in the Bible where, people just kind of roll up on the tabernacle or roll up on like God's presence somewhere, and I don't think they get like evaporated, but they get just like destroyed. They die basically. So thinking about it that way, of God as this like perfect, hyper, holy, righteous presence, and how he could intersect with this like fallen world, and how that's kind of, for me at least, what the beginning of the Old Testament is about, really like contextualize things a lot. And that brings us to the book of Numbers. I'm actually looking for my ruler. It's funny. I have been sitting at my desk because I was like, season 2. We're planning it out. Everything's going to go perfectly. And I don't see my ruler, but it's not a big deal because I have a T-square right here. So that's kind of where the book of Numbers comes in for me, because what the book of Numbers is basically about, if I'm going like off the cuff, is Leviticus gets set up, so now they have this way of relating to God, the people that God's chosen, the Israelites. They have this way of like relating to God. And then the book of Numbers is kind of how that plays out. And I think it's kind of like, someone in the chat said that's actually one of the only books I haven't read or something. Yeah, I feel like it's really underrated. Maybe it's because of the name. Numbers sounds kind of boring, but it actually has like nothing to do with that. Actually, it's called the Book of Numbers because they do a census in the beginning. But in Hebrew, the book is called, I don't know if it's called In the Wilderness or Into the Wilderness, but it's called one of those two things, which is a lot more of an exciting title. I don't know why they changed it for the English edition. But yeah, so it starts out with them. Hold on, wait, actually, I want to focus on what I'm doing. So I'm laying out this rectangle. If this is your first time watching, I like to kind of lay out a square over here. I didn't do it before because I thought I'd kind of do it live, but I guess I could have. So anyway, I kind of wanted to focus on that, and I think it's really awesome because it's kind of this, keep in mind I'm not a priest or a theologian, so I'm just some guy talking to you. It's kind of this like crazy, almost like effed up, weird story where it's all about like the Israelites really kind of like messing up back to back to back, and God kind of extending a hand to them, and then they kind of are like not really that gracious about it, not really that grateful, so he punishes them, and it's this back and forth. Everyone's heard of, I want to make sure this line's perfectly straight. Cool. Everyone's heard of like the 40 years in the wilderness and all that stuff, but when I actually looked into it, that journey that they were taking, I mean, it should have only taken like a few weeks, but it actually took them like 40 years. And they're in the wilderness, and all this weird stuff happens. There's all these little like vignettes and stories that I think are some of the lesser pumped stories in the Old Testament. Some stories in the Old Testament, they have this like, I mean, they're great. I'm really into it, obviously. But they have this kind of like veneer over them where you're like reaching through this layer of your preconceived notions about it. I mean, like Noah's Ark is a perfect example. Noah's Ark is like an awesome story, but I feel like when you bring it up, there's this feeling of like, oh yeah, Noah's Ark, like you've seen the baby toys, you've seen like probably the cheesy, like maybe like evangelical cartoons about Noah's Ark. So it has this like layer of like familiarity. But in the book of Numbers, you're just like on this ride. And as I was reading it, I was also like, wow, this is in the Bible? Like, how come I've never heard of this? So I kind of just wanted to explore a few like symbolic themes from there. First up, what I was thinking was one of the main themes in the book of Numbers is the tabernacle. So I kind of wanted to set up this picture. If you've been watching the whole time, something I talked about a lot before was this kind of like threefold way of laying out the picture plane, where we had like the heavens and kind of like the divine realm, and then the earthly realm below, and then this kind of like underworld realm down below, and that's how I was thinking of breaking up the picture plane. But I wanted to keep that a little bit, but also move away from it. Hold on a second, I'm drinking water. So I was reading about the tabernacle. We'll talk about that as kind of a motif in a second. And the tabernacle is it's basically this tent where the presence of God dwells with the Israelites. So we'll talk about that in a second. But I was thinking, since it's a tent, it's kind of like a canopy, I could maybe lay it out up above, and we can have this kind of like tabernacle tent on top of the picture, framing everything else down below. So I thought that would be really cool. So we'll just lay that out right now, and then we'll get it going. I'm going to grab, boom, brush over here, keeping track of the weapon size. I think we'll start with this brush. It might be too small. I always kind of start a little bit too small, but that's okay. And I got to think about the color situation that I want to go with. The thing is, when I'm doing symbolism and stuff like this, for me there's a spectrum of, if you're painting a picture of a saint, let's say on one end of the spectrum is like an icon or an official religious portrait where you are bearing this burden willfully of conveying, the spirit and character and accurate likeness of this holy figure. And then maybe on the other end of the spectrum is a more like casual painting that doesn't purport to be that. So with all the religious symbolism, I kind of like to fall on the other side of the spectrum. If I was painting a picture of the tabernacle, then I would, be really kind of concerned about rendering it accurately. So it's more like I'm playing around with the symbolism and, working with those motifs rather than being like, I'm going to paint a picture of the tabernacle from the book of Numbers. Just to be clear where I'm coming from symbolically. And because of that, I'm looking at my colors, and I know that it was really ornate and colorful and all that stuff. But I'm kind of just feeling like the brown. I'm really feeling like if we just lay a nice brown up here as this kind of like tent top, that I think that would be pretty tight. So I'm looking at the different browns that I have here. Let you guys into what I'm thinking a little bit. So I'm actually just going to drop them right on the page because why not? We talked about pigments a really long time ago, but there's really like two different kind of browns in your palette. You got the umbers over here, you got the siennas over here, and there's a raw one and a burnt one. These are the burnt ones. You burn something with fire, it's red. The raw ones, they're yellow. So I'm kind of trying to choose. I feel like the raw umber is going to be a good choice. It's kind of like a not very saturated, like almost like leathery brown. I think that's what we're going for right now. It's funny because while I was thinking about all this stuff, the tabernacle is a tent. So actually I should go into what it is a little bit. So basically it's this place where God's presence dwells with the Israelites who are mobile. So they're like a mobile nomadic people, and they live in tents. So when they have to set up a house for God's presence, they use a tent, right? That makes sense. So I was looking into, I'm always like symbolism boy, that's why we're all here. And I went through a few of these books I have about symbolism. I actually upgraded to a bigger brush already. I went through a few of the books about symbolism that I have. And I looked up tent, because I was like, it's interesting, it's a tent. Let's see like what these books have to say about tent. And none of them had a tent. None. I literally have a stack of books all about symbolism right here, and none of them had tent or anything about tents in them, which I thought was ridiculous. But it makes sense, they're nomadic. And even within the tabernacle structure, so I'm going to paint it in right now. So I'm going to leave a little bit of room. What I'm also thinking, I'm going to right now talk about like types and like typology and how the symbols play into different parts of the Bible, but I want to leave some room up above because basically I'm going to paint something else in up above. And the structure that I'm going to go for, I'm going to try and have it come up like that. I'm going to have kind of the roof coming across over here, and then I'm going to have it coming back down, and we'll get kind of like two pillars right in the front. And then you'll be able to see in a little bit. And I'm just going to throw down this straight raw umber. It's kind of like the perfect color. And I don't know. I guess I kind of imagined it being thicker, but even just as like the lines. You know what I'm going to do actually? I can't just leave it just as the lines. It's a little too whack, honestly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the tent coming back this way. I'm going to grab some white and we'll like pale it up and we'll have like the three-dimensional tent, like a trapezoid, like unfolding back over here. So yeah, it's pretty cool because basically the tabernacle was the spot where God's presence lived with them. And then when it was time for them to move, this like cloud of God's presence would rise up from the tabernacle and lead them. And then wherever they were going, they would set it up again. So it was this mobile like dwelling place for God's presence. There's a type of symbolism that I really like a lot. I suppose you call it typology. When I'm reading about it, it's usually described as biblical types. But it's where things in the Old Testament prefigure or symbolize things. Oh my God, there's a little bit of glare. I tried so hard to make there be no glare. We're going to move it a little bit. Boom, perfect. It's basically where things in the Old Testament prefigure is really the perfect word actually. Prefigure things in the New Testament. Really just prefigure the coming of Christ, honestly. And it's pretty awesome. I almost made a meme and posted it last night, but I was a little too busy. too busy for memes. That's my life now. But I wanted to have it be like Jungian archetypes and have it be like some really weak looking like guy with like no muscles, and then have a guy next to him called like biblical typology and have it be a super jacked guy or something like that meme where there's the super jacked dude and he's like, where do you work out? I thought there was something there. But it's kind of like one of the coolest versions of archetypes for me, because in the Old Testament there are all these prefigurations of Christ and Christ coming and things like that. And it's really awesome reading this older text and seeing the parallels with the new text. One of them, for example, would be the tabernacle. I guess I'm going to paint in these pillars while I'm talking here. We'll make the pillars a little bit, should they be darker or lighter? Can't really tell. We'll make them a little bit lighter. We'll use raw sienna. One of them being the tabernacle. So obviously there's this place where God lives and dwells with the people. And that is sort of like an Old Testament type for Jesus, who becomes the way that God dwells among and visits the people in the New Testament, right? I'm not going to focus too much on like hardcore making sure I'm saying everything like theologically correct. So once again, I'm not a priest, just a painter. But in John, they actually use the word tabernacle. He actually uses the word tabernacle. I'm pretty sure it says Christ came and tabernacled among the people. So there's like an explicit parallel there. I was thinking it's kind of interesting. It's kind of like Jesus is like the inverse tabernacle, because the whole point of the tabernacle was that there were all these rules, and it was almost like kind of like a locked door, and you have to make sure you do everything right and perfect so you can be like good enough to like approach this presence of God dwelling among the people. And in a way, it's kind of like almost like an inversion of, you know, the way it is with Christ in a way, because there it's like kind of the opposite. You don't have to like do all these rituals and make sure that everything is, you know, totally clean. Otherwise you're going to get like obliterated or something. It's like a more like open door. So it's kind of like the locked door that like brings God's presence to me. And then, you know, the incarnation is sort of like the unlocked presence. Like now it's for everyone. We don't need to have this like tent that we're like obsessively carrying around. And I'm going to paint some stuff under here. It's actually kind of a cool tent. And the other tabernacle parallel I wanted to hit was in one of my favorite Psalms. It's actually so much so my favorite Psalm that I'm going to grab it over here really quick. I got these stickers printed up. And you can see on the stickers, it says Psalm 19. This was not just for the show. It actually is my favorite Psalm. And in there, it describes the heavens as a tabernacle. It describes like the vault of the heavens as a tabernacle that God has set up for the sun and like the heavenly bodies. So above this like literal tabernacle, I wanted to paint in the dome of the heavens. I thought that would be kind of cool. So we have like the earthly tabernacle, and then we'll have like the heavenly one above it. For the heavenly color, I am definitely 100% going for cobalt blue right now. That is just literally the color of the heavens. It's too perfect. Yeah, someone said, Peter said, St. Paul's letter to the Hebrews talks about this. Christ is a new high priest who mediates God to us. Yes, exactly. And if you're someone who is like, kind of feels how I used to feel, at least, you know, I'm sure it's like, honestly, I'm sure it's very common, even if people feel like disrespectful talking about it. So I guess I'll be the guy who brings it up. But I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, where they're like, yeah, the Old Testament, like, I don't know, why am I reading about all these laws from like people in the desert and stuff like that? But once you start to hit like the typology front and like see how it's like the forerunner to the New Testament in a less obvious way, I mean, like, duh, it's the forerunner to the New Testament. But once you start to like really dig into it, it's pretty awesome. It really unlocked a lot of stuff for me. Okay, so I'm going to throw down this heavenly vault over here. I'm also getting used to holding the brush so you guys can see what I'm doing, so stick with me on that one. Get a little bit more light going on over here. There we go. And I'm not going to get a perfect circle in, obviously, because that would take up way too much space. So I'm actually just going to see if I want to lay down like a thick kind of bar, kind of like a bar over here. Boom. And we'll just get this coming down. And I guess it can touch the tent. I didn't really anticipate that, but it's fine. And we'll have it coming down over here too. It's hard for me to paint with my hand floating like this, but it's cool. We'll make it work. Boom. Cool. If it's anyone's first time watching this, the style I go for is kind of like sketching painting style. So it's not like things need to come out perfect, but you just kind of make it happen, see what happens. Cool. That kind of frees me up a little bit. I thought that I would kind of bend it. I thought I would bend this arc so it would come down and like, oh, that's fine. And line up against this top line here, but I don't know. I thought like the vault look would be a little bit better. In fact, since I did that, maybe it's a sign. Let's make it a little bit thicker. I just want to make it really look like a pictorial element rather than some like random detail. And yeah, it's interesting. I was talking about the fall and stuff before. I was in bed with my wife last night and we were talking about this exactly because I told her what I was going to do the show about. And she was like, she's always an interesting foil for like my theological investigations. And she was like, yeah, it's just kind of weird thinking about like God having to like pick a group of people and like make himself like known to them. It's kind of like how I was like choosing to explain it at the time. But we got to talking, and I don't know, it was kind of interesting because I was like, yeah, once you view it in this way of like God being this like super holy, pure being, how many people do you know even in your life now that would like perfectly accept that? Like not very many. So I'm sure just after the fall, it was even more difficult for him to find a group of people that would like accept that. Okay, so outside the vault of heaven over here, whenever I use this, it's kind of like I have two options. You can, it's like what's beyond the vault of the heavens. I could paint it in as like blackness, like it's almost like space, like super dark, like space, like, black, starry space, not space like the space in between my hands. Or sometimes I paint it in as light. Light is in like literal, like yellow, like shining light. It's sort of like a glass half full, glass half empty kind of view. Like what's beyond like the visible vault of the heavens? Is it like God's luminous presence filling everything? Or is it like this nothingness? I'd be more inclined to go with the light for philosophical reasons, but since I'm painting like God's presence like in this space and everything, I'm not going to do the light this time. I'm going to do the darkness. And as a color for the darkness, so color theory-wise, I could use black or I could use indigo. It's kind of a big fork in the road if I choose to use indigo or if I choose to use black. When you use black, it's like you're taking the low end of the spectrum of the picture and you're bringing it all the way down. Without black, it's going to have more of like a painterly quality, but I think that we should just pump it up. I think we should hit it with the black right now. Sometimes black can make other colors look chalky if you're doing like a more traditional painting, but since I'm kind of going for like the manuscript flavor anyway, it's not really a concern of mine. I'm going to grab a smaller brush. Actually, I'm not. Let's just keep it moving. Boom. Perfect. I'm going to add this like dark, like I said, space around the heavens on the outside here. And then on this blue vault, I'm definitely going to paint in some stars. Whenever I paint in the sky like that, like the blue with the gold stars, it always reminds me of Virgin Mary. Virgin Mary is pretty much always depicted with a blue robe. It often has the gold stars on it, so it's kind of just perfectly bringing everything together. Perfect. Throw down some black over here. So normally if I was painting by myself, I would actually like turn the paper just to make sure I get this like crisp edge, but I like doing it kind of casual with you guys, so if it doesn't come out perfect, that's not a big deal. Boom. Cool. Yeah, my arm. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Actually, I guess I'll mention this on the stream. I don't really like posting about it on Twitter, but I have this thing. So I have this like medical thing. It's not like really. I mean, I guess you could say it's serious, but I'm like fine like day to day. Like it doesn't really affect me like day to day. It's more like something they have to like monitor. It makes it sound really intense. I'm not really going to go into it. It's not as intense as I'm making it sound. But the point is that I posted about it on Twitter, but I went to the doctor. And she told me that if I don't eat for 8 hours, I lose the amount of muscle that someone loses if they don't eat for 3 days. That's like how much my body is like burning energy or like not like storing it well. So, dude, since you told me that, I've just been eating so much food. It's been truly heinous, the amount of food I've been consuming, and it's really awesome. So I'm trying to like bulk up and like put on weight. I'm not like that skinny, actually. I mean, I'm like, I don't want to give my exact height and weight, but I'm not embarrassed by it, actually. It's pretty good, I would say. I'm a pretty tall guy, so. Okay, back to the theology. Sorry, someone just commented on it, so I just wanted to like get that off my chest. It's insane. Imagine being in the doctor's office and this woman's like, what I just told you, basically. Like, yeah, if you don't eat for 8 hours. And think about it. Like, when you sleep, it's 8 hours, right? So you don't eat then, right? Duh. So since then, I've just been, like, pounding, like, an absurd amount of food. Okay. Anyway. Back to the theological painting situation. So, yeah, I'm not actually as skinny as it makes my arms look. But whatever, man. You know, if God chose to give me some weird, like, situation like that, I'm just gonna roll with it, man. Okay, so in the tabernacle, I'm throwing down this this like rope. It's a little bit lower than I wanted it to be, but actually I think it'll be cool. And what I'm gonna paint on here is this veil. So like deep within the tabernacle, there's like, you know, the Holy of Holies where like no one's really like allowed to go. And it's like this veiled space that kind of like conceals like God's presence, I guess you could say. I'm kind of going back and forth on like how much exposition I should give. I don't want to have it to be like a full like half-hour intro of me just like hardcore, you know, explaining like what the arc of the Old Testament is. I mean, I guess that would be cool, but yeah. So you can look into some of this stuff yourself. But I'm giving enough context that if you have no idea, you can still enjoy and understand. So deep in the tabernacle, there's this like spot where it's like concealing like God's presence, basically. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to throw down a veil, sort of like as a symbolic representation of that. I want it to be like leather color. I really want to get the leather color, so I dropped this color called Naples Yellow Light. This is a color you need in your palette because it's really the best way to get like white people's skin color. This Naples Yellow Light, that's what like Renaissance painters like Titian and people used. But it's also good for desaturated, like kind of leathery, woody colors like what I'm going for right here. So I'm going to drop this little veil hanging from this rope. I don't know what I'm going to put on it. Yeah. I think the lighting situation is good. My hand's making a little bit of a shadow, but I think it's good. But let me know what you guys think later. I had to set it up so there'd be no... It's crazy doing the lighting so there's no reflection, but also so the colors look good, and also so everything's lit, and also so X, Y, and Z. So I actually worked on it for a while today. Last show, the lighting was really whack, and I feel like I got to a point where I was like, all right, I have to. I owe it to the people. I got to step it up a little bit. Cool. Might as well go hard. Most people's ideas about it are probably based on Indiana Jones. Yeah, true. True, actually. Yeah, so we got this veil, and I'm going to put this kind of like luminous cloud behind the veil. I think that'll be dope. So it's like God's this like luminous presence behind the veil. And then we'll keep building the picture down. I thought it'd be cool to like build the picture down this way. So another little interesting concept I wanted to hit. And let's see, right now I have to decide what color I'm going to make this like kind of cloud back here. I got a few options, I guess. Honestly, I'm going to go with my first instinct, and I'm going to make it pink. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to use like a light pink because pink clouds, luminousness, pink is going to go really well with the yellow, so it's going to be perfect. So one other really good, wow, this is a crazy color. Yeah, let's do it. I mean, why not? And I like that I have so much more room over here to mix the paint. You guys can see what I'm doing. That's perfect. So we'll see how that looks when it's mixed with white. And then I'll kind of drop it in behind there. So another concept, if you're building up like, you know, the sacred symbolism part of your brain, hopefully that's why some of you guys are here, I guess. Some of you guys already probably know this. But there's something called an axis mundi. It's like a really good like building block for understanding like sacred symbolism and even just religions in general and things like that. An axis mundi is basically like it's kind of like the universal orienter for a worldview. So if you were like Norse pagan back in the day, you have like the world tree at the center of the universe. It's kind of like what the center of the universe is for your worldview. I guess you could say in Catholicism, the physical axis mundi would be the Vatican would be the actual, or the Pope. Maybe the Pope is actually like the physical axis mundi if you're Catholic. It's kind of interesting, actually. Never thought about that. So for the Israelites, when they had the tabernacle, that was like their axis mundi. That was like their center of the universe in a way, and they brought it with them. It was like a mobile axis mundi, basically. I guess you could say now in Christianity. So this is something I thought about a lot. I actually haven't really read this anywhere, but I'm sure someone else has thought about it or written about it. Some religions have mental axis mundis, or like a spiritual axis mundi. And in my opinion, Jesus is kind of like the spiritual mental axis mundi for Christianity. It's like when you become Christian, it all becomes oriented around this. I don't know what word to use. I don't want to say concept because that makes it sound like I think it's just a concept. Obviously, I don't think that. But if I'm speaking like as a kind of like faux religious analyzer kind of person, it becomes oriented around this axis mundi that is like Christ and your like relationship with Christ. It's kind of similar to, let's see, what's another parallel there? Buddhism has like a figure as an axis mundi. Buddhism has like the Buddha as the axis mundi. But not all religions are like that. Like Islam, for example, I wouldn't really say that in Islam the axis mundi is like Muhammad. It kind of seems like they have more of like a physical axis mundi, that being the Mecca that they literally use to orient themselves, right? So here, with the Israelites, we have this like mobile axis mundi that is like the tabernacle and like the Ark of the Covenant and stuff. Okay. I'm going to throw down this little cloud. I'm just going to make it kind of like a normal cloud. I'm pretty sure we're going to do some other clouds later, so I'm just going to kind of like throw it down. I want it to be more like smoke than like a cloud, but it'll be fine. The other interesting thing about the paints is that, also that's why you could see me hesitating. I was like, is this color dark enough? The light colors dry darker. The dark colors dry lighter. So take note of how light this is right over here. It's something I have to account for as I'm painting. This will probably be way, way, way darker by the time it dries. Perfect. Cool. So I'm just going to throw down this kind of like smoky cloud back here. Sort of like what's behind the cloud. And you can see it's already getting darker. Throw some like light rays out of there too. Perfect. And on the front of the cloud, on the front of the veil, doesn't really look like a cloud, but it's okay. We'll kind of get some like trailing smoke. I'm also hoping it looks a little bit different when it dries. I guess I will put in some of the straight up like smoke like coming off of it. We'll even get some going in front of this little bar. Get some smoke over here too. Boom. Yeah, that's a lot better. And we'll get rid of this like dip over here. I always feel very married to using like that little divot in the clouds, but don't have to do the same thing every time. Alright, cool. So we got this like smoky, like God's presence going on back over here. It's kind of dope actually. Cool. And like I said, when I'm doing this, I'm more interested in like feeling out the ideas and like getting everything perfect. Not gonna lie, I don't really know what to put in this space up here. It kind of would perfectly fit a sun, and I also feel like the colors for that would be perfect, so we're just gonna throw down a sun. We're gonna keep it moving. I want the first episode of season 2 to go well and swiftly, so we're gonna throw down a sun. Boom. Sun is also, this is just like, I don't know what to call it, kind of like faux symbology, just like light symbology, but the sun also has like a parallel with Christ, so it goes together. I guess you could say to me that's more like Jungian. It's more like a Jungian association than like a literal biblical association. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if Jesus is related to the sun directly in the Bible, but cool. And the orange is really loose, so you can see it kind of like drip down onto the tent color over there, but it's not a big deal. I'll just paint over it. So we'll throw down this orange sun. Boom. Yeah, that looks dope. And I'll throw down these light rays too. What I'll do is I'll kind of quickly throw down some like fat light rays, and then we'll go back and add some like tighter, like more specific ones in. So I'll throw down some like big fat, like luminous, like chunky rays of light. I'm just gonna kind of see if I can pick that up a little bit. Yeah, I'll go back over and fix that when it's dry. I'm not gonna mess with it now. Ooh, pretty close, pretty close. Nice. Access Monday in Catholicism is the Eucharist. I'm kind of like poking up and like seeing what's going on in the chat too. Yeah, I mean, you can make a case for like many things there for sure. For sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lemon yellow. This is like a cool yellow. It's like the color of a lemon. And I'm going to put these fat light rays coming out of the top. And then when it's dry, I'll come back in with the cadmium yellow. It's more of like a dark... cadmium yellow is kind of like school bus yellow. And then I'll paint in these like specific rays over here. Cool. And it's actually perfect that... I wish I could like slow down my voice or speed up the painting, because it's perfect that we are putting the sun up here because of the next thing I want to throw down. So in the book of Numbers, everything is like kind of described about how everything's going down and how they're moving around and stuff. And actually, this is perfect. This will be a perfect bridge. So like I said, it's called the book of Numbers because they do a census in the beginning. But they're not just doing a census like for the hell of it. They're doing it because it's almost like a military census. It's almost like a draft. So, they got out of Egypt. Now they're going through the wilderness, and they basically do this draft. It's kind of like they give everyone a number basically, so they know what the deal is when they do like military stuff. And in this study Bible I have, it was saying that there's a parallel there because just like this group of people was like had a militant nature, so too does the church have like a militant nature. Some of you guys have probably heard the term like church militant before, but the militancy is like spiritual warfare and the militancy of like evangelism and like converting people and stuff. So I thought that was cool. Anyway though, so they give everyone a number. They have like this census, and I'm kind of intentionally painting this just like a little bit rough up here, partially so we can keep it moving, partially just because I think it would look cool. And then when we come back up, we'll, fill out the other spots. I'm actually just going to put a really light yellow wash down in this white pages, these white pages part. Cool. So also, like I was saying before, the Old Testament gets really cool when you start to see it as like the setup for like Jesus coming, and that happens in like a lot of ways. Some people, maybe I knew this from like Rastafarian stuff from when I used to live in Brooklyn and used to be around a lot of Rastafarian people, but it's another context too. Some of you guys have probably heard of like the Lion of Judah and stuff like that. It's called that because Judah was the tribe designated to be like the lineage that Christ came from. So within this there's a reason I'm saying this because I'm about to drop like another pictorial element in here. So within the, actually, this is perfect. I'll just grab a piece of paper. Perfect. Everything's coming together. Season 2 can't be stopped. So within the camp and stuff like that, so every time they move, they like reset this up. So you have the tabernacle in the center. Could have made this a little bigger. It's okay. You have the tabernacle in the center, and then around that you have, I might mess this up a little bit, like I said, painter, not theologian. You have the Levites, or you have basically the tribe that like is the high priest for the Israelites, so like Moses and the crew. Pretty sure it's the Levi group, but I don't want to tell you guys the wrong thing. But you have like the high priest and like sort of like the most elevated group, I guess you could say, in the top. I actually should get a bigger piece of paper. Oh, perfect. Because, so you have the tabernacle, boom, and you have the Levites around there. And the cool thing is that it's described how it's laid out, right, every time they go and set up camp. So you have 12 tribes, right? And they're set up around in a circle, and it basically forms a cross. So some people have, of course, read into the fact that it's like a giant cross moving through the desert, like prefiguring Jesus is coming, right? So I actually went back and read the text today, and it says that, I went back and read it because sometimes you see it laid out like this in drawings, where you have the 3 camps over here, you have 3 camps over here, you have 3 camps down here, and then guess what? You have 3 camps over here for the different like 12 tribes, right? It's kind of a cross. But then sometimes you also see it pictured like this, with the tabernacle, high priest around, and then sometimes it's set up like this, where they're going back in space. So this is kind of like more like a cross to me, actually. I like these pictures more. I think it looks more badass, honestly, with them like camped up in the desert like this. So I've seen it both ways, and I was like, well, I'm talking about it tonight on the stream. I'll go back and read it myself. So I did, and it's not really like totally clear. It says that they're oriented around the tabernacle, facing inwards, but facing inwards. That could mean one of these two setups, right? It could be either way. But I thought that was kind of cool to set up with like the cross. And I mentioned the tribe of Judah and stuff like that. So it's kind of a nice like symbolical, linguistical tie-in. I do make up words on the stream and I don't care. So the tribe of Judah is in the east, right? So let's say this one over here. The east is the same thing as saying the Orient. So it's in the Orient, and it's just kind of a cool linguistic parallel that the word orient, like to orient yourself, like how you orient your life and how you orient yourself in day-to-day life, is the same word as the Orient, right? And in another book in the Bible, in the book of Zechariah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it is the book of Zechariah. It says that Christ will be called the East and the Orient. So in this thing I was reading today, I was making some parallel between like this camp being in the East, the sun rising in the East, Jesus being called like the East and the Orient, and then orienting, like how you orient your life. It's not really a hardcore like scholastic point, but I thought it was actually pretty cool. So what I wanted to paint in is I want to paint in like a little geometric version of that right here. I might not even color it in too much. And then I think I know what I want to get coming down from there, and then we'll kind of kick into some more like hardcore painting stuff. But I am going to throw that down, and I feel like I'm going to do it in a blue. I like this like light dark blue I have going on over here. So I'm going to grab this brush. I don't know if I should do it in the cobalt blue though. The cobalt blue looks good if you're laying down like layers and like fat chunks of it, but when you do line work with it, sometimes it's a little, I don't know. It's kind of a weird, the color either looks really, really cheap or really, really rich, I guess you could say, depending on how you use it. So I'm going to throw that in this indigo. It's really nice, like dark color. And I'm just going to paint in that little arrangement we just discussed. I think it kind of gives it, honestly, I think having a little bit of geometry in a picture, if we're just talking purely aesthetics, gives it a little like esoteric flavor. If you're ever like sketching something in your sketchbook, you can kind of just put down like a cube or like a tetrahedron or something near it, and it kind of looks like, whoa, secret esoteric diagrams. But here it's not a cheap trick. It's relevant to what we're talking about. So I'm going to throw it down. And it's kind of risky going for a circle, but I'm just doing it casual with you guys, so it's whatever. It's not a big deal for me. If things don't come out perfect. Boom. Pretty good. I'll definitely take that. Except I should have done the circle last to make sure I could fit everything, but it'll be cool. I'm going to paint in the square. That is the tabernacle. I'm going to paint in the camps around the outside. Boom. 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 Cool. Looks really nice. Has a nice like watercolor flavor to it when the lines aren't like totally perfect. And then I'm going to put them in dark. I'm just going to put in the brush strokes. Gives it kind of like a calligraphic flavor. When you're doing watercolor and doing painting like this, in my opinion, like the main thing you don't want is you don't want it to look too like unconfident. That really goes for any form of art. People kind of respond to like the confidence of your line making. If there's one thing you take away from like talking to me about art, the confidence of the mark making is what people respond to. If you're making your marks confidently, then people will respond to it. So I went with the lines instead of painting in the rectangles. You get kind of like, oh, gotta get the rectangle perfect, and then it doesn't really read as well in my opinion. So I just kind of went for it there. And I'm going to throw down the corners over here. I'm just going to have this kind of be like darkness. It's not really relevant to like the tent diagram setup that we were talking about before. Cool. And what I want to paint in coming down off the bottom of this thing. So what I'm thinking is, since we're talking book of numbers and I'm kind of pumping like the types and typology things, what I want to do is I want to have a barrier coming down the middle. I want to have something down here at the bottom, and then we'll have one element here, and that'll be like the layout for the picture. I don't want to cram like, there's this designer I heard talking in the show once, and he said, I don't want to cram 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag. I think about that all the time. So you want to give things like room to breathe and like room to be read. So let's kind of like get that going down here, and then while we're waiting for it to dry, maybe we'll come back up here. Let's do that. Let's kind of wrap up the middle and top up here, and then we'll keep it moving. I'm going to paint in an eye on this veil. So this veil that's like concealing like God's presence up here. I thought I would put stuff back here like in the tabernacle. Like I thought I would get like incense and like smoke and stuff. But I don't know, like I just said, I don't want to put like 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. So I am trying not to curse on the stream, but I'm working on it. It'll be like a drop off. It'll be like a J curve, like dropping off. No one's told me they like watch this with their kids yet. I guess when someone says that, I'll like really try to like get it together. So I'm gonna take out this really, really, really small brush. Boom. I think this is 0. If you were watching last time, I have like triple zeros and ones that are way smaller, but since I'm gonna put this eye up here, I want it to look really dope. So I'm just gonna make sure I get the brush with the right amount of paint on it. And I really like putting things in red. I have a feeling we have some blood in this picture since we are doing like Old Testament style. So the red will kind of like marry it all together. Just gonna throw down this eye. Boom. Coming down over here. Boom. And I'm gonna put the circle in. Yeah. Nice. That looks legit. I nailed that circle so hard, I kind of don't want to put the iris in, but I am going to. Maybe against my better judgment. Someone said a few episodes ago, I always say I don't want to do something and then do it. And since then, I realized that I actually do that all the time. All right, nice. And you know what? Also, I'm going to dry the brush a little bit. I almost want to just outline the cloud because it doesn't really look like a cloud. It just kind of looks like a blob. So I want to get that outline going in. I also think it'll look dope with like the red outline that then recedes behind the like leather curtain over here. I'll kind of just let that happen over there. Get this going over here. I guess eventually I could outline the veil. I haven't really been outlining stuff on the show because it's not really for any particular reason. That looks dope. That looks dope. You watch this with your kids? All right. Fritz Pendleton says he watches it with his kids. All right. I gotta drop the cursing then. That's not right. All right. So I'm gonna outline the veil too. Actually, let's see if we can step it up for season 2. Step up the visual style. Boom. If any kids actually are watching, you shouldn't curse. It makes you sound really dumb. And then the real problem is you get to be my age, and then you can't turn it off. It's whack. All right, so I'm going to outline this. Man, that was a really bad line. I made 2 really good lines, and then that line sucked. I guess sucked is not really a curse, but it's not ideal. All right, boom. That looks legit. All right, we're getting legit over here now. We're getting legit. Oh, everyone like the intro? Word up. Word up. Cool. Yeah, I'm not an animator. That's about but I think I got the point across with that. Okay. Actually, since we're outlining stuff up here, I'm going to outline the sun in red too. So what I want to put at the bottom, I'm actually pretty excited about. So this is one of my favorite like weird scenes in the Bible, and obviously, I have to come at things like from my own perspective. So like I'm an artist. I hate saying that, it sounds really pretentious. I'm a painter. That's really more accurate. I'm like an illustrator. I think about things in images, so I really like when things have cool images. That's just kind of how I think about things. I'm sure if someone was a musician, that would affect how they like viewed scripture and stuff like that. So what I want to get down here at the bottom are these quails. And I want to do that because there's a really, really, really strange part of the part of the book of Numbers that comes up where long story short, there's, they're basically, I mentioned it before, but I didn't mention it before. So like kind of in my opinion, I guess you could say what I've like taken away from it is the whole book's about, like we said, God working with these imperfect people. God's perfect, the people aren't, and trying to figure out like what the deal is with this like relationship. So what keeps happening is the people keep like complaining and basically being like super ungrateful. So he punishes them, and then, they kind of get it back together, but not really. And then you get the wilderness generation where they're like, well, why are we even in the wilderness? This sucks. And we were back in Egypt eating like, it actually says in the scripture, it says like we had leeks and watermelon and, berries and lamb. That was awesome. And now we're here in the wilderness and this is whack. Like we should just go back to Egypt, and like they actually talk about it. So that's where you get the wilderness generation where they wander for 40 years. Kind because God's like, all right, well, if that's how you feel, then, you know, you don't get to go to the promised land. There you go. And that kind of like encapsulates the theme of the book for me, where it's like God extends his hand, but you have free will. And if you want to not be gracious about it and you want to, you know, basically go down like the dark, wrong road, you can do that. It's kind of like the theme of the book underlying it for me anyway. So right after that, what I just described, where they kind of get in like, not a fight, but they're being ungrateful, and then, you know, they kind of get it back together again. They have another conversation about the food, and they're like, we want meat. We want like some meat to eat, but there's so many people, there's not enough meat. So God sends these quails. And actually in the book, it says, I don't want to mess up the quote. It says, you're going to have so much meat that it's going to be pouring out of your nostrils. You're going to be so sick of stuffing your face with meat. That's not the quote, but that's basically what it says. And it says it's going to be coming out of your nostrils. It's actually in there in the scripture. So you're going to be so sick of meat, you're going to wish you never asked me for meat. And all these quails come, and there's like 6 feet, or maybe it's like 3 feet. I did the calculation, but I don't have my paper with me right now. It says like in cubits, but it's like the ground is like covered in quails, and people are wandering through these like feet deep of quails. I think it's like 3 feet of quails. And it says they gathered so many quails, the person who had the least had 2 of these like biblical measurements, and I did the math, and it was like hundreds of, not hundreds, but it was like dozens of like dry gallons, whatever that is, of quails. Like, so hundreds of quails, everyone's gathering them up. And I read this other thing about the quails, so like I dug into like the symbolism behind it. And there actually are these quails that migrate over where they were. The quails were like on their way going to Europe, so they're coming like kind of like down from like Africa, like south down there, and they're coming up to Europe, and they fly over where these people were, where the Israelites were. And I don't know if this is like a wives' tale or like folk science, or if this is actually real, but what this guy said was that the quails are so tired after flying for so long that they'll just collapse on the ground, and you can just walk around and like scoop up these little like tired quails. So I don't know if that's real, but that's what the guy was saying, that the, well, like, you know, kind of like the myth of it is, you could say. So that really happens there. So he sent like, I guess, 20 million times more quails than normal. And they gather up all these quails, and they're leaving out the meat to dry. And some people start eating like the raw meat. It's kind of ambiguous, but it seems like some people start like eating the raw quail meat. And then God kills a bunch of them for being like all lustful and not like respecting like the whole situation. It's a really weird story. But it kind of was just, for me, perfectly nailing this like perfect God interacting with these imperfect people and getting these weird situations where God's like, oh, you guys want to go back to Egypt because you want meat? All right, get ready to wade through like 10 feet of quails, losers. And then a bunch of them die from eating like raw quail meat because they're so amped about it. Okay, I'm going to pull up something really quick. I haven't really done this before, but I think it'll be cool. I actually practiced this to make sure I could do it. You're going to get like the infinite receding visual effect just for 1 second. But I think it's worth it. All right, boom. I'm assuming you can see the quail on my screen. Can you? Yeah, you definitely can. All right, cool. So I want to just pull this up really quick because, I don't know, just want to show a visual reference for what I'm about to like dig into. I actually can't see the chat right now, so I hope this is working, but I'm pretty sure it is. I tested it out before. If it's not working, I'll be done in like 30 seconds. But I wanted to pull this up just because when you're painting, a lot of times I'll just draw from my mind and just take things out of my brain, and that gives me like a certain style and like visual flavor. But sometimes it is good to look at references. For a quail, I mean, does anyone really 100% have a perfect image of a quail in their mind? Probably not. So I pulled up this reference image. This is actually the exact pose I want to use. And when I look at something like this, I'm trying to notice what makes it, this sounds really stupid, but it's actually not as dumb as it sounds. I try to notice the specific things that make it look like what it is. The specific visual characteristics that make it look unique. So it's kind of like when I'm looking at this, I imagine like, okay, what if I just drew like a generic bird? How is this different than that? So I notice things like, I didn't anticipate using my mouse, but I will really quick. Like this swoop over here, how its head is shaped, the way its beak swoops into the head, how it kind of has this like particular shape down here. But mostly I'm noticing the pattern, the way the pattern works. It has this like white coming down over here. It has the marks, and the way the marks, they're actually pretty painterly. They get kind of bigger as they go near the back, and they kind of fit in these like streaky patterns coming down. So that's just basically what I'm noticing as I'm going in. So I just wanted to pull this up because I thought it'd be cool to see. And I'm also noticing this really big white streak coming off the eye. So that's kind of what I'm going to be keeping in mind as I come in to paint this quail. You're going to get the receding infinity effect really quick, but we are back. All right. Pulling fancy tech tricks, pulling things up on the screen. Right. We're back. Cool. Trying to minimize the amount of like dead time I'm working with right there. Okay, so I am going to paint in those quails, and what I'm thinking would be really sick is that what kind of drew me to that as an image, oh, this is the perfect size, this is perfect, was that the quail is such like an innocuous, almost like cute kind of bird, right, in a way, but then it fits into this really like dark story where God's saying people are going to have like so much meat in their face it's going to be coming out of their nose, and then people die because they were lusting for this meat so badly. I mean, they had manna. I mean, I guess I'm not really pitching the story fairly. They had like manna from heaven to eat, and they were just, you know, not really being grateful about it, so I don't want to be unfair mischaracterizing the story. But what I like about it, I guess, yeah, is like I said, the quail is kind of like such an innocent bird, and it plays into this really dark, like crazy story. I actually put a quail in the background of my avatar that I made recently because I was thinking about this little tail. The quail tail. Reconfiguring some things here. Boom. Just want to make sure I can see everything. Nice. Yeah, I actually didn't really know what a quail looked like either, honestly. I thought all the quails, I'm looking at someone in the chat that said this, I thought all quails, so I'm going to draw like a really crappy one over here. Look at this art. I'm so good at art. I thought they all had that thing coming off the top. You know what I'm talking about? I thought they all had that black feather coming off the top, but I don't think they do. It's like a different kind of quail, I guess. So anyway, what I want to do is kind of utilize that cute, innocent, nice bird paired with like the murdery, dark nature of the story. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, we're going to get that first quail coming in. I'm not going to worry too much about making this look perfect, because I just want to show you guys what I'm thinking before I jump in. So I'm not worried too much, but that actually is a pretty good approximation of its body shape. I would probably tuck it in more here, but it doesn't matter. So I'm going to have one kind of up, standing like the one we just saw. When you draw birds, you always got to go really confidently with the legs to make them look like they're actually like standing on the earth. You can see even here, I did a pretty good job there. But if you go in kind of like nervously, sometimes the bird looks like it's about to like fall over. So I want to get one down here like this, but then I also want to just go in hard. I did a sketch like this for Patreon, not for Patreon, but I put my sketches on Patreon. So I posted something like this, maybe last week, maybe the week before. But I want to also have just one quail here. Boom, just like with its head cut off. And we'll get like the head cut off there. We'll have the feet, and then we'll get some blood. It's Old Testament style. There's blood. There's blood involved. And I think that would be a really dope like image to have at the bottom over here. So I'm going to tuck that away. And we're just going to go for it. When I'm painting in like this, it's kind of hard because technically I should do the thing in the back first so I can paint the thing that's closer to us above it. But to be honest with you, I'm not going to do that. I mean, I could get like a pen, but then I got pen on the paper, and it kind of changes the whole situation. And I like when it's just straight painting, so we're just going to go for it right now. Might look like a quail, it might not, but it's okay. And you can see over here, what I'm going to do is, in a lot of classical painting, so if you were doing like 1500, 1600, 1700 style painting, and you were like officially studying with someone and doing like that era of classical painting, you would really almost never use black pigment actually. If you were gonna have something black, you would mix it yourself, and you would use ultramarine, that's like a dark blue color I have over here, and brown, and mixing that dark blue and brown gives you like a really warm, rich black that's not as frankly like artificial and intense as this black. So I'm gonna kind of outline the quail in this brown, and then when I want to go a little bit darker with the colors, I'm just gonna drop in the indigo right over here, and we'll see how that goes. And yeah, I could pencil it in first, like I said, but I don't know. It just feels like I shouldn't do that. I kind of want more light. Yeah, that's better. That's better. Getting better at the lighting situation. And let's just go for it. So I got to get the little hooked beak in over here. It's pretty good. But I want it to be big enough for you guys to see. So, and the quail has kind of like a really thin neck. So it comes in a little bit over here. And then I'm going to give it that fat belly. I guess they're good to eat. They look kind of fat. I never ate one before, actually. I'm going to have it come back over here. It's close enough. Close enough for our purposes. I'm going to get a little bit of that vibe going on there. Close enough, like I said. And I'm going to get a little bit of a darker color going on.
Has anyone eaten quail? If anyone in the chat has eaten quail, tell me, actually. I want to know. I have never eaten quail. I did for the stream. I anticipated talking about this, and I did look up what quail tastes like. And apparently it's like in between duck and chicken. Like, you know, if you've had duck is so good. It's one of my favorite things to eat. It has like a way more intense flavor than chicken. And apparently quail is like somewhere in between. So since we're doing this on the stream, I really could like crack out hard and get like all those little like notches of color in, but I also don't want this quail to look like divorced from the rest of the picture, so I'm going to kind of try and paint in like wider swatches of color, like bigger, chunkier colors. If you have one part of the picture where, you know, you've gone in really obsessively and put in like really tiny details, and then everywhere else is these big flat areas of color, then it kind of looks like someone came to a magazine and like cut out a picture and glued it on something else. You want it to all be like developing together. This color right here is actually almost perfect. It's almost like perfect quail color. So let's see. We can maybe just get it coming in. I want those like chunks of color like coming down. I think that's what's going to give us that like feeling that we just saw in there. And then it actually gets pretty warm down in the middle, so I'm mixing paint with my brushes. I guess that's just going to happen. Shouldn't be doing it, but this is an extremely do as I say, not as I do moment. But it's fine. Boom. Yeah, I got that nice warm orange, and I'm going to try and get that like streaky energy coming down. And then the back, it's a lot darker. I'm actually just going to see what happens if I come in just straight. Yeah, that's what we want. That like watercolor effect. There we go. Nice. And if I got it a little darker, I could even just do that on the back of the quail too. Let's get that kind of, this is where the watercolor really comes through. Yeah, that looks good to me. Eaten pheasant? I haven't eaten pheasant. I've seen one before, but I haven't eaten one. I imagine you can hunt quail around where I live. I don't actually know where they live, but it's got to be somewhere around here. And while it's wet, I'm just going to really quickly put in these dark patches. This is really like painting birds and watercolor really go together. If you guys know the Audubon Society and like John Audubon, he would just like crack out watercoloring birds. For some reason, it just really fits their like style and vibe, where you can like use the lightness of the paper like coming through. And let's see. I mean, that's almost like good enough for me, honestly. I kind of want it to dry so I can, yeah, see what I'm trying to do? Let's see, I'm going to pick up some of the, color there. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, someone said I used the, ooh, nice. Okay, the paper towel picked it up perfectly. That looks perfect. Yeah, someone said I mix with the brushes every stream. It's probably true, actually. Nice. This looks legit. See, there's also a thing when you're painting where sometimes if you're like married to something, like if you're like, oh, I really want to get that detail, that's what ends up like messing you up. For me, that's happening right now with that white streak we saw coming off the quail's face. Like part of me is telling me to dig back in here and like make sure that white streak is like standing out. But another part of me is telling me like, get away, just get away. That looks really legit. I actually really like how that looks. So I'm going to come back in and give it some of those dark patches. And that is definitely good enough for me. Nice. And I put them really close to the ground. If I was in Photoshop, I would just push them up a little bit, but it's okay. So I'm just going to give them like simple legs. Normally I would paint in the like if you get a chicken leg, you have that haunchy part up top. Normally I would paint that in here, but I put them too close to the ground. So I'm just going to have to pretend that no one's going to notice. Damn, this guy looks really cute. Good little quail. Yeah. And the feet, I'm just kind of putting in the feet really quickly. You want it to look like he's standing on the ground, like I said, so I don't want to get too like fussy. And with the feet, now we're going to do the same thing, but for his beheaded friend behind him. And we'll get some like dark red blood going in. It's going to be great. Get that real Old Testament flavor going on. Yeah, I haven't had quail eggs, but they look pretty cool. I was thinking about putting one in here in this picture. Kind of made the cutoff head too wide. Like if you look at it, like it wouldn't really be that wide, but I think it's fine. No one's going to be measuring my little picture. And I'll make him really thin because I don't want him to be like too big. I want it to visually read like they're the same kind of bird. So I'm actually just going to have it fold up like that. He's a little bigger, but it's okay. And I think I'll make it less contrast. So contrast where the dark and light touch each other in a picture. What people do, so this is a really good learning moment actually if you're watching this right now. If you're watching this, in case you don't just have this on like while you're cooking dinner, which actually would be cool. So what a lot of people do is they'll be thinking like for what, like, this is a perfect example of it. They'll say, okay, this thing's in the back, right? It's behind. So that means it's shadowy. It's in the shadows. It's dark. And they'll make it really, 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 really dark back here. But actually, the more contrast something has, the more there's dark darks touching light light. That in your mind makes it seem like it's closer, actually. So if something's behind something else, if something's further in the back, you don't want to give it a lot of contrast. It's kind of easy to remember, and if you've never thought about that, you can actually see it in your real life, because if you're driving along and there's mountains, or even if there's like a city in the background way far away from you, notice how much contrast there is. There won't be that much contrast. You won't get like very dark darks touching very light lights. If you're looking at a mountain or something really far away, it'll all be kind of like hazy together. So you can see I'm leaving it like super loose. Also, your mind's going to kind of associate the details. So I don't need to get in here and paint in like every little detail because we have the quail over here. And I'm not even following my own advice because I'm putting these little dark spots on the back. But I thought he needed it a little bit. Did I go too abstract? No, I think it's good. I think it's good. Cooking dinner gang present. Nice. I watch other people's like podcasts and stuff when I'm cooking dinner actually. So. Okay, I'm going to throw down his legs back here. Same deal. I'm going to kind of... The thing about watercolor is you can kind of just put in whatever and the eye will like read it in. You can like let your viewers' eyes read it in. Color of the blood. So, yeah, I have kind of some options here. I could use the cadmium scarlet. That's like the warmest color, this really, really bright blood over here. But, I don't know. I'm kind of tempted to use the cadmium red, which is a little bit darker. Let's go with the... I don't know. I'm really torn. Part of me wants to have this really bright blood like down at the bottom, but also, I don't know. Let's go for it. Let's use the cadmium red. I would normally use cadmium scarlet. But let's use the cadmium red. We're here to change things up, do it differently. What I'm going to do, actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to paint in the blood on the bottom using the cadmium red. And then on him, in his like open neck, I'll put the cadmium scarlet. So it'll be like warmer. Perfect. And I'll have the pool wrapping up before it gets to his little friend's legs over here. I actually thought we'd get some blood up here. At this time, they were still doing like animal sacrifices and stuff like that, but I don't know. It didn't really happen. I don't want to force it. Yeah, that's awesome. That's legit. This is looking legit. And then on his body, I'm going to put in... yeah, I see someone said in the chat, add like dark brown to the blood. I could do that. Then I'm kind of veering into like realistic blood territory. Like I want it to be like really dark. I almost like the like symbolic pictorial nature of using like the hyper red blood, but... All right, that looks legit. I'm actually gonna get just like a little bit on the outside. Great. Wow, I'm very pleased with that. This is another little detail, another little tip I picked up, but I mean, it's kind of just something I realized working myself over time. The animal's eyes, if I put a little white dot in here, if you put a little shine in the eyes, the viewer will read that as like a real living animal. It's like you make the animal a character. If you don't do that, it's like the animal is less alive. So I'm not doing that right now because I don't want it to have that effect, but that's just something for you to consider when you're working. So I want to throw down the, in the middle, I'm going to use a pillar of cloud. God's presence descends as like a pillar of cloud in the book of Numbers all the time. And I think that would be a really good dividing line before we kick into the two sides over here. And what I'm thinking right now, you can probably sense a little bit of my hesitation, is I want to use cerulean blue. I got cerulean blue. We talked about it a few times on the stream, but that tube sucked. it was really lame, and the binder was all separated from the pigment and everything, so I can't even really use it. I'm going to try to use it. I got this cerulean blue right here. I actually, oh my god, I wish there was like synesthetic like feeling through YouTube, because I'm squeezing this tube and I can feel that the pigment in here is completely dry, and it's maddening. It's downright maddening to me. But I can already feel that I'm about to be disappointed. Look, the glue. Look, I knew it was going to happen. Do you see the glue? Oh, I'm squeezing so hard and all the pigment is dry. I just want to use cerulean blue. Oh, it would be the perfect color. Actually, I might just stick my paint tube in. I might just stick the brush in here. Let's see what happens. I actually emailed Winsor & Newton. So I emailed them. And I said, hey, I'm not mad. You guys make the best paint, but this is the second tube of cerulean blue I've gotten. And this happens. And I'm not even mad. I don't even want a refund. I said, I just want cerulean blue paint that actually works. Just give it to me. And they said it was a manufacturing error. I don't think that's true, because I got 2 different tubes from 2 very different places at 2 very different times. So I think it's something to do with the pigment, but it's fine. So you can see it's such a nice blue. It's the perfect color. It's the one color that doesn't work. But there must be a reason. And you can see it's really loose because I had to just like dig in there and take out like the loose wet pigment. So I'm going to mix it with a little bit of white. Someone said, I'm trying to keep up with the chat also. I feel like maybe once we cross halfway, maybe that's how we'll do the setup. Like once we cross halfway, I can kind of keep like a little bit more of an eye on the chat, because then we got like the informational vibe going. Still feeling it out, so work with me. Someone said, been following you for a bit. Want to get some merch? That's dope. The studio appreciates all merch purchases. Do I know what the dimensions of the conspiracy print is? It doesn't say on the website. Ooh, that's a mistake. I'm gonna fix that immediately. I'm like 99% sure it's 12 by 16. If you message me on Twitter, I'll definitely tell you. I'm pretty sure all the prints are 12 by 16. Some of them are 12 by 18, but it should say, and I'll fix that. But I'm pretty sure it's 12 by 16. So I'm going to throw down this pillar of cloud right here behind him. That's basically what I'm going to do right now. I like doing the 12 by 16 or 12 by 18 size. When people order like custom prints from me too, that's normally the size I do it, because I think it's kind of like the perfect size. It's not too big, it's not too small. You don't want to have something like ridiculously large, but also if it's too small, then it doesn't really have like a commanding like presence in the room. So that's normally the size I do. Not that you would know that. It should be on the website. So for the pillar of cloud, I'm kind of just like trying to feel out how I want to do this. I'm kind of torn between like medieval-y clouds or like Tibetan clouds. They're actually not that different. I'm wondering if I can get away with like one of these little loops over here and then get like the bumps coming in and kind of like pick it up like that. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. Nice. You want it to look like clouds. Unless you're like oil painting, it's kind of hard to like really get it to look like a cloud, because otherwise it's just like a white blob. So you kind of have to get like what the mind thinks of when it thinks of clouds in there like that. At least that's my opinion. Let's see. Maybe that loop was a little bit too much, but I think it's good. You guys will know what it is because we're talking here. And you can see how much it darkened up. It darkened up immensely now that the binder is dry. Boom. Okay. This is perfect. Cool. Get a little bit. One more little twirl down here. And yeah, I haven't really been taking any questions or anything like that yet. Let's do it this way. I have one more symbol thing I want to talk about, and then I'll just... I mean, then I'll still be talking and stuff, but then if you want to like ask me anything, I can like hardcore like deviate. There's kind of one more book of numbers-y thing I wanted to hit. That actually looks pretty awesome. I did not plan out how the pillar of cloud would look, and I actually really like it. I was kind of worried. Got to worry about at least one thing each stream. That's enough. I don't want to overdo it. Cool. Little tucks in there. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, one more. Can't stop. All right, perfect. So we got this pillar of cloud. That actually, I'm actually really feeling how this picture is coming out. This is like blessed right now. Okay, so last like symbol thing I wanted to hit as like a hardcore thing that we're dropping in the symbol tapestry cauldron over here, Book of Numbers style. By the way, this is just the first part of the Book of Numbers. Honestly, I think we'll do another one about the Book of Numbers, because there's a ton of stuff that happens in the second half. It's really awesome. As I was like reading and trying to plan this out a little bit, I had that feeling of the 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag, and I was like, oh, I feel like this is 2 paintings. Like later on in the Book of Numbers, there's like a pagan sorcerer called Balaam, and he is like hired to like curse the Israelites, and there's like the brazen serpent, if you guys know about that. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna cram it all in, and then I was like, yo, we got time, let's let everything speak for itself. I was working on a picture once, and I was working on this comic, and it was a really, really tiny comic, and I was like jamming everything in, and one of my teachers, it's kind of like a friend teacher I had, came over, and he was like, you got to give everything room to speak for itself. You got to give everything room to say what it's trying to say. So sometimes I think about that when I'm doing paintings and stuff. You want to give everything like room to breathe, basically. So on that note, the last symbol I wanted to get in the mix here is Aaron's rod. So that's a pretty awesome one because it really hits the like Bible esoterica vibe that I'm on, where Aaron, who's Moses' older brother, has this rod, he has this staff, right? And it's in part of the book of Exodus where they're trying to get Pharaoh to let them go. And it's kind of cool because it's where the Bible intersects with like magic. Like it's magic in like a non-derogatory sense if you want to include like, well, actually, I was going to say if you want to include things that relate to God and magic, but actually there is just straight up magic that isn't God's doing, because in the Exodus story, Aaron goes to the Pharaoh with Moses, I'm pretty sure. It doesn't really matter who's there. And they have this little like contest to see who is, better. I forget the exact like terms of it. I didn't like study up on this part for the stream, so just bear with me. But Aaron brings his rod and throws it down and turns it into a snake. God turns it into a snake. And then Pharaoh has these sorcerers, and they throw down their rods, and their rods turn into snakes also. So it's like, oh, we're even. Look at that. But then Aaron's snake rod eats the other snakes, which I thought was awesome. And then it turns back into a rod, I'm pretty sure. Then in the book of Numbers, there's this scene where what's the guy's name? It's like Korah or something. It starts with a K. These people like rebel against Moses and the high priest, and they're like, well, who are you to like boss us around? Like, why would we even listen to you? And there's this big rebellion, and God actually makes this pit that opens up and swallows like Korah's tent. And like 250 of these guys that were kind of part of his rebellion get eaten up by this fire. So everyone's like, okay, we're done rebelling, definitely. But then afterwards, God kind of wants to like seal the deal and like make sure everyone knows like who the chosen high priest is. So everyone takes their rods. Everyone who I guess is like a contender. I kind of forget exactly who's doing it, but everyone who I guess wants to be a contender or whatever. Oh no, they bring one rod for every tribe. So they bring one rod for every tribe. And Aaron brings a rod for his tribe, and they leave it in the tabernacle or in front of the tabernacle overnight. And then when they come back, only Aaron's rod has bloomed. It's like bloomed into like this flowering, fruiting, budding situation. So it's kind of cool. It's almost like a magic wand, right? Like, again, not in like a derogatory or like Harry Potter way, but it kind of is like this magical staff. Rod has a connotation of like shepherd leading the sheep, but there also is like super physical forces involved and like how it's handled and stuff. So what I want to do is I'm going to paint in 3 of the rods over here. I'm not going to paint in all 12. I think that would just be like visually disturbing. So I'm going to paint in 3 of the rods over here not blooming, just like the dead ones, and then we'll paint in 1 over here that's like fresh and like full, and that'll basically be what we're working with here. As I've been talking, I'm thinking it would be tight if I painted in some light blue like watercolory shading on the cloud, but we'll go back and do that. So I do have lots of like sketches around and stuff. I'm basically always working on getting the art situation off the ground, like literally all the time. All the behind the scenes stuff I put on Patreon. It's not a plug. I'm just letting you know why I normally wouldn't show this on Twitter or anything. But this is a few weeks ago, so I'll show you guys here. So I actually had this sketch around. I didn't do this for the stream or anything. Not that it's like especially like crazy or noteworthy or something, but I was looking at it, and Aaron's rod is when it buds, it gives off almonds. So pretty safe to assume it's like an almond branch, right? So I checked it out, and I was like, well, what do the flowers look like on an almond branch? Like, might as well get it right. And I drew this out, and it has these really nice, like 5-petaled, like fat, disky flowers. This is the botanical terms that we would use. With this nice, like crown in the center. It has this like disc of stamens, pistons. I'm not a botanist, I don't know actually, of nectary pokers coming out of the middle, and then these nice like fat white petals coming around the outside. And I sketched out what it would look like if one was bloomed over here, so you can see. I mean, it looks like a normal rod, but as an artist, you kind of want to know the details. It also has budding almonds on the rod, so I didn't really know how that would be attached to like an almond tree. So they actually just come out in these little like pouches over here. So I'm not going to go so hard of like getting every detail perfect, but you can imagine if you're painting in something like this, you kind of want to know what it looks like in general. So that's what that's from. And one other cool little symbolic parallel. So I have a suspicion that this is like folk symbology. I kind of doubt that it is like 100% like this is why they did that. I have a feeling it's like a folk association, but I will plug it because I thought it was pretty cool. So there's something called a mandorla. If you guys have seen a lot of like Renaissance art or in medieval art too, they use the shape called the mandorla. So this is going to be like just really quick drawing. I just want to show you guys because I think it's cool. So everyone's familiar with like the halo, right? Boom, circle halo. And sometimes divine beings, it's actually kind of rare. You have to be in like certain places in Christendom to get this, but sometimes, you know, if someone's like coming down from the heavens, look how good this picture is. It's so good. Look at the little legs. It's so good. Sometimes you'll get the halo, right? And then you get kind of like a full like body halo. That's like a very early medieval thing to me personally. And then you get the rays like coming out of it. But what's more common in medieval art, and as you get going, especially towards the Renaissance, especially in the Renaissance actually, you get a shape called a mandorla. A mandorla, I actually don't know what that word means. Should we check? I probably have a book within arm's reach that explains what it is. I think it's Italian for almond, actually, but I'm not going to check because I don't want to delay the stream. So I think it's Italian for almond, but it might not be. And it's an almond shape like this, and you'll actually see in lots of paintings there'll be a figure. Sometimes it's Mary, sometimes it's Jesus, in this almond shape, and there'll be like doves and like angels around the outside. And what one of the, like I said, I suspect it's like folk etymology, but what one of the things that I was reading said about it, what some scholar said, was that it's associated with the almond from Aaron's rod, because the almond tree gives forth these flowers. You know, Mary's often in this almond shape, and it was drawing kind of like a loose parallel. Like I said, I seriously doubt that someone in the Renaissance painting studio was like, hey, why don't we use an almond shape because of Aaron's rod in the Old Testament? But sometimes you get those kind of like, I call them folk associations, where there's an association drawn by, you know, kind of like, I don't know. It's like folk etymology, but it's real. I don't know how to exactly explain what I'm trying to explain. It's like, it wasn't intentional, but the symbolism is still there. That's actually exactly what I mean. It wasn't intentionally crafted, but you could still read into it in a symbolic context. That's what I'm trying to say. So I thought that was cool. Little detour over there. So I'm going to paint in the rods, and we'll paint in the budding rod over here. I guess, how far are we? Perfect. Perfect timing. Season 2 is kicking off perfectly. So yeah, I'll keep talking more about that. But if anyone wants to ask me anything, we can kind of we can stray from the things I've planned. That's mostly the things I wanted to hit, talking wise. For the, I mean, we'll still talk about it, but we can get a little more casual, I guess you could say. So for the rods, I kind of have to pick what colors I want to use. I'm going to stay with the browns, but I'm going to use 3 different browns on the left side. So I will use the tent colors, but I'm going to put them... Whoa, it's not a big deal, but it could have been. So I'm going to put them behind another color. I think I'm going to use burnt sienna for the rod in the front. This is a really nice, warm, like woody color, so I think this would be perfect. Nice. People are confirming that mandorla is Italian for almond. That's awesome. I'm enjoying that fact. Now that I'm looking at this color, it is kind of like very like chocolatey. I don't necessarily want to deploy like full-on chocolate color, so I'm going to cut it a little bit with the raw umber. Someone asked me, what do elephants symbolize? That's an interesting question. Well, you don't really get them much in European stuff, right? Just going off the top of my head. You don't really get them much in European stuff. I mean, when someone asks me like what things symbolize, there's like a few different ways you can answer that. I guess if it's not like a Christian thing, I kind of do think of it in like a Jungian context of like what's like the transcultural and like deep psyche, collective unconscious association with that animal. So, I mean, there will be pretty intuitive. Everything that... Hold on, I just don't want to mess this up. I'm going to put it in pretty big. I don't want to put it in too big, but I don't want to put it in too small either. So all the things you would probably guess, you know, strength, longevity, power. An elephant's a weird symbol because it's kind of docile. Like, people don't think of them as being, like, scary, really, I think. But they are, like, really powerful, strong animals. Most of the elephant symbolism stuff I've seen is from Buddhism. And like Eastern religion stuff, naturally, right? They have more elephants there. There's some Buddhist pictures where an elephant represents the mind that like needs to be tamed, and there'll be like a guy moving along a path, and as he gets further up the path, he's like tamed the elephant more, and in the end, he's like finally riding it, but in the beginning, it like won't listen to him. In some esoteric Buddhist stuff, an elephant represents the ability to like sit and observe and like be observant and be like quiet and still. So it has like a paradoxical nature as like an animal that stampedes and is really powerful, but then also I think people sense that it has like a quieter, deeper side. I dated a girl that really liked elephants once. It's kind of weird. Is that the answer you're looking for? That would be my main answer to that. I can't really think of any like religious significance to them. Actually, I guess in Hinduism there's Ganesha, who has an elephant head. That would be definitely part of the elephant symbolism. Elephants are matriarchal. I actually had a dream once. I went to... okay, that looks good. I want to make it longer, though, actually. I went to Italy, and I had this dream that I was like leading this red elephant through these like huge doors. And I didn't know what it meant at the time. Actually, not that I know what it means now. But it was really weird, and it made a really big impression on me because I just got there, and I was like, what does it mean? This like big red elephant. That's my off-the-cuff response to that. Someone asked me, yeah! No. Dude. Why? Hello? What should I have going on? Can you guys hear me at all? I'm back? I'm back, right? It seems like I'm back. Keeps going back and forth between red and green. It keeps... I have this like indicator in the bottom right that says it's going back and forth between red and green. Is it going all right? We're back? Okay. If it cuts out again, I will go tell my wife to get off the internet, actually. I'm tempted to go do it right now, but if it's working, I don't really need to. Okay. I'm going to just keep going, and you guys can let me know if it's not working. It's going back and forth. No, back-ish. All right, we're back-ish. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, I will be right back. Okay, let's see. Damn, it keeps going back and forth between red and green. Paint while it's up, I know, right? I'm going to take my phone off the internet. I got my wife off the internet. I'm going to upgrade the internet, I guess. Yeah, this is all a ploy to get people on Patreon, right? Keep going back and forth between red and green. Yo, you know what I can do? Maybe I can lower the quality. It's kind of lame. I don't really want to lower the quality. I guess I could. I don't know. I don't really want to do that. I'm going to try it really quick.
Damn, I'm down to 0. That is brutal. Why? Why is it 0? I guess I'm going to disconnect and reconnect from the internet really quick. Maybe that's dumb. It's green. Man, so annoying. We're going perfect. Had the perfect situation going. I think it's still going. Yeah, we're back. Are we back? I can see. It's green now. Let's see. Back. Someone said back. Okay. Well, yeah. I can see you guys in the chat over here. It's green. I think it worked. I just reset my internet. Let's wait for like 2 seconds. Let's just see. Is it working? Fine at the moment. I was talking about elephants in Buddhism. I think that worked. I just disconnected and reconnected from the internet. Okay. We got the hardware together. We got the setup together. We got the info together for season 2. I guess I need to upgrade my internet. I have really fast internet, honestly. So I don't know why that would happen. But I think it's cool. All right. I'm just going to kick back into it. Sorry for that weird delay. But we're just going to roll with it. Okay. So just confirming that it's still working. Yeah, it's green now. It was red for a minute, but it's green now. It's working now, yo. Perfect. 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 Okay, where did I cut off? Did I cut off talking about Buddhism and elephants? Is that where you guys lost me? No. Maybe. Looks like we're good. Yep, someone said yep. Cool, cool, cool. Cool. Elephants. Okay, we got cut off on elephants. Yeah. I was saying that in Buddhism, there are these paintings where someone's depicted with an elephant, and the elephant represents their like uncontrollable wandering mind, and that then by the end of it, it's like a guy going up a path with like a bunch of like almost like a comic strip, like him going up the path, and then at the end he's like tamed his mind and like got this elephant like under control and he's riding it. So that would basically be it. That's basically all I was saying. And it looks like we're good. Yeah, maybe it was YouTube. Maybe it wasn't me. My internet was working fine, so and it's weird. I could talk to you guys in the chat. Whatever. I'm not going to focus on the tech. I think it's fine. And then when I re-upload this, I'll just cut that part out. Cool. Okay, let's see if the chat's working back in this window. I just want to keep it moving. I can only see you guys in this window, but it's fine. Cool. All right. Cool. Almost the perfect first episode of season 2, but we'll take it. We will take it. So I'm going to paint in this other rod over here. I'm really feeling the browns in this picture. Normally I'm not so inclined to use browns so heavily, but it's looking dope. Yeah, so since we talked about all the symbolism that I wanted to deploy, we can kind of talk about whatever you guys want. If you said something before, though, I can't see it now. I can see the chat perfectly now, but I'm sure in the interim some people said things that I didn't see. Nice, and I'm feeling this like trifecta of these like 3 browns over here. It looks tight. So I'm going to come in and paint this in a little bit. Get these kind of branches going on, and these will be like the dead branches. Technically the names of the tribes over here were written on these branches, but I'm not going to do that. This is cool. Cool. Alright, and on this side I'm going to paint in the Aaron's rod budding. And I think we'll get some kind of like yellow glowing in, and I think we'll probably be good. I mean, it's looking pretty awesome, honestly. I want this like rich dark brown over here. So I'm going to grab this. I want to thicken it up a little bit. Now we're just anarchy mixing with the brushes. It's fine though. Cool. Okay, cool. Someone asked, meaning of the Third Eye Nationalism Gun Club shirt. Nice, that's awesome. I basically made that because I'm going to paint it in long and straight right here, and then come back in and get the like details in.
It's kind of a shirt / hoodie joking about the fact that we / I are at this weird intersection of kind of like being, I guess you could say patriotic. I'm like a patriotic guy in a sense. Or being down with like nationalism and nations and stuff like that, but also being like kind of like tripped out mystical weirdos. That's basically what it is. It's kind of like a rare overlap that I embody of people who are like into mystical weird stuff but aren't on the spectrum of like the type of politics that normally manifests in, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, that's basically what it is. It's kind of like a joke. I mean, it's like a joke that's real, just to be clear. And I also like finding other people that are kind of in that weird pocket of like people who are kind of into the like mystical freaks, kind of spiritual weirdo vibe, but also, you know, like guns and stuff like that. Not in like a pathological way, but just in kind of like a normal, healthy way, in my opinion. If that's not a good enough answer, you can ask me in a different way. Was I inspired from any animations or cartoons from your past? You know, actually, man, it's really funny because I think that sometimes my work has like a little bit of a Venn diagram overlap with like certain aspects of like the cartoon visual vibe. But actually, no. I watched cartoons when I was little, but then I didn't really think about them at all for many years. I think it's just kind of like a coincidence, honestly, that if you push... This is something I've thought about a lot. I think it's kind of a coincidence that if you push certain aspects of simplification and certain aspects of the medieval vibe and the two-dimensional painting vibe, and if you push all these things that I'm really into hard enough, it's kind of like you start to overlap with that kind of like cartoon world in a way. Like sometimes I'll draw someone's hand like super chunky on the end of like a very like tubular graphic arm. But when I do that, I'm not thinking about like animation or cartoons or anything like that. Like for me, I'm thinking about like medieval art or art from like the 400s and 500s. Like not even like medieval. Like if you look at really old manuscripts, they kind of have this like it's kind of like a weird overlap. I mean, that's really the best way I could say it. Very simplified drawings. That's how I'll phrase it. Very simplified drawings have a strange overlap with what we see in modern times as like cartoons and like that cartoon visuals. Actually, I don't know if people know this, but the word cartoon probably comes from the sketches they would do for like Renaissance art. If you were doing a fresco and you were painting on the walls, you would paint in a cartoon. It's literally called a cartoon, and it's like the simplified drawing that you would use as the basis for your fresco. So maybe that's why. But yeah, I mean, sometimes on Twitter you'll see people will post like some art from like the 600s or something, or like someone recently posted this like European kid who drew himself like riding a horse or something during his like rune lesson classes in like the 700s, and like someone commented like, why did Owen draw this? And yeah, there's like a weird overlap between like, that's the best way to put it, simplified drawing styles and then what we see as cartoons. But basically, no. I can't really think of any cartoons that influenced me, I guess. Except King of the Hill, but that's not visual. That's just like the informational and vibe. Man, I love this like gradient of leaves that I'm getting going on over here. Cool. Okay, and now I want to get in some of those. I'm going to kind of develop it up naturally. I don't want to put like all the leaves in and then try and go back and put other stuff in. So we'll get some of those almonds. It is an almond tree. An almond branch. I want to get some white in. So let's just probably make them too light. I mean, really almonds wouldn't be that light, but I want to make sure they look different from the wood. So I'm going to put in some of those. Going on. Yeah, this turned out really awesome. Then I got to put in the flowers. The thing is, the flowers are white, so I might just put them in as like drawn in circles, honestly. Propane nationalism. Yeah, for real. Yeah, my parents wanted to get me a grill, actually. They're like, we don't really have that kind of relationship where they would just like randomly buy me stuff, but they hit me up and were like, hey, we want to get you a grill. I guess they were like talking about me or something. And I was like, well, I have to get a propane grill. I mean, I can't have watched every episode of King of the Hill like 25 times and then get a charcoal grill. It would just be wrong. That looks good with the brown almonds coming off. Oh, wait, I lowered the quality. I'm going to kick the quality back up as long as the stream's on. I don't know if you guys can tell. It was at 3,800 and I lowered it to 3,000. There's no like metric for what any of these things mean, so I just put it back up. I don't know. Let me know if you notice the difference. Okay, now I'm going to put in the flowers. Just for the visual of it, I'm going to grab a little bit of this pink that we used before. And I'm even going to get a little bit of the brown in there, so it's not as saturated, but... I just found 40K because of a Stardust fan YouTube. What do you think about it? You're talking about like Warhammer 40K? I don't really know anything about that. I know a lot of guys are like really into it, but I don't really know much about it, honestly. I don't really know anything about it, actually, so I couldn't say. If anyone's into it and you want to let us know what the vibe is in the chat, I will read it. But I don't know. And I'm going to try and paint in, see, it's so small, but I'm going to paint in just these like nice, like poofy white flowers. I'm just going to paint them in as circles. And I shouldn't have pinked it. I mean, I shouldn't have like oranged it down. Even though the flowers aren't white, it looks nice with the pink. So I'm going to grab some white. Cool. Get this over here. Nice. This was a very successful first one, aside from our little tech, but it's fine. At least it was something out of my control. As long as it's something out of my control, I feel good about it. As long as I've done everything I can. Okay, let's get these nice. That's like too white, though. Cool. And we'll make them a little bigger even, just so they read as like flowers. And I might even go through, see, like sometimes you gotta just embrace how it is. I'm even just gonna put some like pink dots down so it looks like it's like very aggressively flowering. Yeah, that looks awesome. Nice. I'm very pleased with that, actually. I even put some in on the branches themselves. Almost like it's covered, like there's just like too much and you can't even like see the wood. I'm actually gonna go back and do that with some of the green, actually. Cool. So yeah, once I throw down some background colors, we'll be good. And we're right on time. It's 8:45. I'm trying to keep these, ideally, I mean, I say this like every stream. I thought they would be an hour, but it seems like 2 hours is kind of the natural amount of time. Put a little bit of the green in. Some green dots coming in. Nice. And I like how kind of like playful and light and cheerful this like pink flowered blooming rod looks over here, and then as you come down there's like the quail who got aggressively decapitated. I'm really happy with that, actually. I thought we would come back in and put some rays of cadmium up here on the top, but I don't know if I'm gonna do it. Actually, I am gonna do it. Why not? It looks pretty dope. Cool. And yeah, we're going to start landing the plane, like I say, near the end of each one. So if anyone has anything else they want to ask me or say, let me know, because we're going to start closing in on our destination. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put in alternating, wavy. Oh, I didn't even put the stars in. I got to put the stars in too. Wavy and straight lines. Normally when I do the wavy and straight lines, it's symbolic of both the heat and light of the sun. So you got the heat and the light coming off of it. I don't know if that's how all painters think of it, but I read that a long time ago and it always stuck with me. Boom. Get the curve. Get it straight. Get the curve. Oh yeah, and also, not to like shill, but if you're this far in the stream, you probably just enjoy the vibe and don't mind. I have one more rosary print here if anyone wants it. I mean, I'm selling it, so not like I can't give it away because I'm broke, but if anyone's been waiting for one, I have one more here, and then I'm getting more frames in the mail in like a few weeks. But if anyone wants that last one, hit me up on Twitter. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to put the lines in here. I'm going to throw down the stars. I thought I'd put in this nice like 6-pointed stars that I like using. I like putting in, I'm not going to paint it. I like putting in the 6-pointed stars, but I'm just going to put in dots. I don't want one area of the picture now to take on like too much significance. Like I said, it's kind of like wherever you, if you put an abnormal amount of attention in any one place, it'll like draw your attention there. That looks really good. And I want to get a big like bazooka kind of brush going on. Okay. And I'm just going to, what I want to do lightly is just kick in some of the yellow around, fill in the spaces, and I think we're going to be done. This looks really good. I'm really pleased with how this looks. I don't want to get these other colors. How far off the screen am I? I think it's fine. I'm just going to get some of the yellow. I don't want it to be like too much. Whoa, hit the light. So I'm going to, let's see. Is that good? This might be good. Yeah. And it's kind of good because the yellow is not so saturated, so it's kind of like ambiguous if it's like sand or light or what. I almost want it to like not be even like seen. Cool. Get the same thing going on over here. This will be a lot darker. Yeah, there we go. And it's not really wet enough. I don't want you to be able to really even see the brush strokes. Yeah, perfect. Cool. This came out really good. It's turned out very well. Maybe I can even get some of the red kicked up in. Yeah, nice. Great. Get a little bit of it back over here. This yellow will also push the cloud forward. It'll make it look like it's not just floating on a white background, which it literally is right now. Get some of the blue. Okay, I'm playing a dangerous game, so I'm going to stop right there. Nice. I'm really stoked about how this turned out. This looks awesome. Honestly, if I didn't do this live and I tweaked it up a little bit, I would sure to put this out as like a finished painting. This looks awesome. Okay. I don't know if the chat's delayed or not. I can't really tell. I think we're good though. So yeah, wow. I'm gonna start wrapping this up. If anyone wants to ask me anything, I'm gonna keep an eye on the chat. Otherwise, I'm gonna start wrapping it up and we'll clear it up under 2 hours. So yeah, this turned out really well. I'm really stoked about this. I'm really stoked that planning it out a little bit and having like a direction. I thought it might be like kind of stale, but actually I feel like it was the opposite. I feel like it's really easy for me to just go and like hit the things that I want to hit. Yeah, everything came together really well. This is a perfect like symbolic interpretation for me of like the first part of the Book of Numbers, and also just like the vibe in general. The weird sacrificing things, dying, things are like dead but also good. I think I kind of landed in this nice spot between like things being very optimistic and good, but also kind of just weird, honestly. So this is the first half of the Book of Numbers painting, and I really like how it turned out. This was the first episode of season 2, and it turned out awesome. We have turned up the vibe. We've escalated the vibe. Also, I wasn't sure how it was going to go when I planned something out and keeping up with the chat, but actually I think it worked really well. If you watch the whole thing, if you want to hit me up and let me know if it was good or whatever, or what you thought, that's tight. If not, that's cool too. You're not obliged to like complete a customer survey at the end. But yeah, my favorite part of this is actually the texture on the quail. The texture on the quail with the very like illustrative flat colors everywhere else, I think really works. So maybe next time I'll try and push that. And yeah, I think what we're going to do next time is the second half of the Book of Numbers. And for season 2, we'll kind of like plan it out and have a direction that we're going in. I think that's obviously the way to go. Any questions in there? Sick painting once again. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you, Peter. Spoon of Salty. How should I spend my stimulus check? Depends on how broke you are. If you're a millionaire and you are super wealthy and have more money than you know what to do with, you should support the Broadcast Theological Mystical Art Emporium Bazaar. No, I'm just playing. How should you spend it? Something that's going to enhance your life. Maybe get some art supplies, or if you play music, get like new strings for your instrument. Something that's going to help you, express the spirit of your soul more, man. That would be my advice. And yeah, someone else said buy my merch, so I don't have to say that. That's awesome. Cool, guys. Well, thanks for watching this. Thanks for sticking through the tech thing. It's really funny because I was at my desk for like an hour before this, just making sure everything would be perfect. And we had a tech hiccup, but it's not a big deal. So yeah, thanks for coming through. I am trying to step this up, and I think we did a pretty good job tonight. So I hope this was dope for you guys. I really love doing this. It's really awesome, and that's why I felt like people were coming out, so I kind of wanted to like make it as dope as possible. So that's what I'm doing. And yeah, guys, thanks for checking out my vibe. Thanks for being a part of the whole weird internet scene that we all hang out in. I really love it. It's really awesome. And yeah, I will catch you guys on the internet where we all hang out. And yeah, guys, have a good night. Thanks a lot for coming through, and I'll see you guys later.